Mayday! Mayday! This is Dr. James Samus of the research vessel Sabrina. We have run aground on an uncharted landmass.
Oh, sorry about that, Doc. Bumpy ride, huh? The Bermuda Triangle, and I'm looking for a freaking ghost ship. Wonderful.
Don't mind him, Dr. Saris. Aconite Security appreciates your business. Dylan just gets punchy when he flies. What exactly should we be looking for, Dr. Saris? Your father's ship was lost 30 years ago. If there's a wreck to find... Miss Saris?
Mayday! Mayday! Flight Alpha Sierra 239er is going down! Entrance 1 and 2 are out! Repeat, we are going down!
Don't worry, it's real easy. You just jump and scream.
Dinosaurs. We all love dinosaurs. Seriously, let's face it, dinosaurs are hands down one of the coolest creations God ever placed on this planet. I mean, you know, thank goodness they're gone, because, well, you know, things would be kind of interesting now, wouldn't they? But still, dinosaurs rule, and for a very good reason. Because of this fascination we humans have with these beasts, they have been incorporated in almost every medium. Movies, comics, books, toys, and needless to say, video games. In fact, dinosaurs have been in video games since the 80s. Interestingly enough, though, there's not really any dinosaur game series. I mean, yeah, there was Turok back in the day, along with Dino Crisis, the exploitation of the Jurassic Park license, and one could argue Ark, I guess, but really there isn't an actual dinosaur game series, but rather video games that feature dinosaurs. That said, let's talk about the somewhat painful transition from one console to the next. Just like most things in life, nothing lasts forever, and video games are far from an exception. Eventually, consoles run their course, and then they are replaced with a new, more powerful model, or more powerful console, for more impressive games. But the transitions are not instantaneous, as usually the console will be active for some time before the life cycle comes to an end, and toward the end, usually there are games still coming out for the older console, but just at a much slower pace. During this transition period, developers would often make a game for all available platforms, older and newer. In other words, the same game on the new console would also be on the old console, albeit under the limitations of the older platform. Because of this, it wasn't uncommon for the game to be completely different or just be stripped down, lower resolution version of the newer console version. Now, I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but instead just try to make the point of what era of gaming we're entering with this title. We're mostly going to be focusing on the PS2 version, but on occasion where necessary, we'll be going to the PS3 version. This is Jurassic the Hunted, a 2009 first-person shooter developed by Cauldron HQ and Activision. Oh great, a first-person shooter from Activision. I wonder what kind of shooter this will be. Whatever. So, what's our setup? Basically, the daughter of a long-lost scientist, James Cyrus, is now searching for her father in the Bermuda Triangle. They are searching for him here because apparently he disappeared doing research years ago, and many years later a transmission from him was suddenly intercepted. A survival expert, former Navy SEAL of the fictitious Aconite Security Corporation, Craig Dillon, the player, are now on the way to find a supposedly lost ship due to the recovered should-be-lost transmission. And Craig is not really enthused about it.
Bumpy ride, huh? The Bermuda Triangle, and I'm looking for a freaking ghost ship. Wonderful.
Don't mind him, Dr. Saris. Aconite Security appreciates your business. Dylan just gets punchy when he flies.
Then all of a sudden, they are in the middle of a time storm. Because, you know, this is the Bermuda Triangle. Since the plane is going down, they make plans to jump, and,
Don't worry, it's real easy. You just jump and scream.
Well done, Craig. Well done. So Dylan, despite actually making the jump, also got caught up in the time warp and is somewhere in time. I honestly can't figure it out. It's not really clear if they went back in time or if they're just in the present time, but Everything else went to the past, or I don't know, I don't really have a clue. I don't think we're supposed to think too much into this. Yeah, good luck, game. Most of my favorite franchises have to do with time travel. You better believe I'm questioning all of this. I mean, granted, it doesn't really matter as it doesn't really affect the plot much either way, but it still would be nice to establish it somehow. Anyway, we're now on the island, and we're greeted with some raptors. Okay, and now on to the gameplay. As previously stated, this game is a first-person shooter, and we don't have a gun. What kind of a security firm do you work for, Dylan? We seriously don't even have a sidearm? How are we supposed to protect this gal? Whatever. So, I mentioned earlier that this was one of those games that came out during the whole console transition, specifically the transition between the PS2 to the PS3 era. Now, this game really isn't the best example for last gen meets next gen. There are games that are a far better example, but there are noticeable differences between the two games. And here's one of them. The beginning of the game, there are a couple of bits that are missing in the PS2 version that are on the PS3 version. Nothing significant, mind you, but noteworthy.
That's Monty's flight jacket, but that's impossible. These bones are years old. What the foxtrot's happening here? Oh, geez, Monty, I'm sorry, buddy. You were a hell of a pilot. But that's impossible. We were still airborne less than an hour ago, but you look like you've been hanging around here for years.
But what is the same on both versions is our first weapon, an M1911. Well, they don't really call it that, but that's what it is. Okay, from here we're in traditional shooter affair for the most part, where we just go through the story. So here's a good part as any for us to show the gameplay. As previously stated, the game is a first-person shooter, and it is pretty run-of-the-mill. Nothing spectacularly wrong with it, but there's nothing truly noteworthy about it. But there are a couple things worth noting between the two versions, last gen and next gen. First thing is the fact that in the PS2 version, you can carry only 2 different weapons, which at the time, or even now, wasn't unheard of. Shooters usually allow the player to hold 2 different weapons. Now on the PS3 version, you can have 4 different weapons. Another feature worth noting that is missing in the PS2 version are weapon upgrades. Yeah, in the PS3 version you can find these devices that somehow increase your ammunition capacity on a number of weapons. Because, you know, that's a thing. Okay, so back to the story. Basically, we find ourselves in an electrical storm, but these storms, he can talk to his old buddy via comlink. Doing so, his buddy gives him instruction on how to meet up with him, and they can see what their next course of action will be. Oh yeah, at this point we have another mechanic in this game. We have this Max Payne-esque slow motion X-ray thing. Cool? I don't know. But the nice thing I can say is that it does work and it can be useful if you use it right. It's worth noting at this point that all the loading screens are these dinosaur fun fact shots as well as excerpts from the game's storyline since, you know, the game just can't incorporate it into the actual story. We have to get this secondhand or just spell it out since the game itself can't explain it. Whatever, so on to the next point of the game. No, I swear, we're only like 15 minutes into this game. We're getting all sorts of variety right up front. Enjoy, because now we're doing a stationary turret. And it's as fun as always. In all honesty, this really wouldn't be so bad, but I mean, look at this. The controls are strange to begin with, and the gun, not the hardest weapon to handle, is not that easy to use since the bullet spread is so wide, which is probably accurate. Actually, if there is one thing I can appreciate about this game, it's the fact that the weapons in this game do range from all over time. So, some weapons are modern, some are from World War II, and some are even further back, like the American Civil War. And actually, considering the plot, I'd be disappointed if they didn't do something like this. Not that it really matters, the game is still nothing special, but still. So after a long path of fighting raptors, oh, by the way, they do evolve into Deinonychus and Utah raptors and thus are stronger and harder to kill, but it's still not much variation. At some point you'll run into Dilophosaurs here and there, but nothing that is not to be expected. Anyway, we're at another part of this game. And tell me if this looks familiar. Remember, this is a game made by Activision. Hint, hint. That's right, it's Call of Duty's Nazi Zombie mode, except it's with raptors. And shockingly, this is more rewarding than Nazi Zombies ever was, if only because you can put what's happening into context. If you've never played Call of Duty's Nazi Zombie mode, you're not missing much. No, but seriously, the way the game works is that you're inside this enclosure with wooden planks to keep raptors out. Basically, you're supposed to keep them out while repairing the windows as they break them to get inside. Oh, and this is far from a one-time deal. You do this multiple times throughout the game. And while the situation changes and sometimes you'll get a different dinosaurs or whatever, it never gets any more engaging. In all seriousness, this game mode isn't a bad idea, it's just out of place, and the fact that it's a blatant ripoff of a well-known game mode at the time can't be ignored, and it will raise brows for multiple reasons. So after an hour doing the same crap over and over again, more Nazi raptor modes and another turret section with a minigun, going through a volcano or whatever, and we are finally at the next noteworthy chapter into the game. For the record, we are 6 stages into the game to get here, and we get to finally see the long-lost Professor Cyrus. Yep, he's alive. If you're surprised, then you didn't pay attention. Especially considering there's time travel involved. As far as what's been going on with the Bermuda Triangle and him missing, well, let him explain.
Next touches, it leaves this material behind. I believe it was just such a vortex, triggered by a magnetic reversal of the Earth's poles, that caused the greatest extinction the Earth has ever known. And if my calculations are correct, another event of even greater magnitude is almost upon us. And the Mayans knew it, the Sumerians knew it, and so did these men. The German submarine, U-1226, missing since October 1944. She was carrying an experimental device. It is called the Zeitliche Turbulent Machine, or Temporal Vortex Engine. As you can probably guess, the experiment was a great success. Here, the wreckage of the U-1226 is in the cave 5 kilometers east of here. If the device can be repaired...
Then we can go home.
Yes, and the world can be warned of the coming cataclysm and possibly find a way to stop it.
Then what are we doing just sitting here looking at old pictures? Why not just have me and Rock go get the damn thing and...
Mr. Dillon, Rock is in no condition to endanger himself.
What are you talking about? Rock's 6'3" of pure Navy SEAL.
Not anymore, he's not.
Who?
It's me, Dylan. It's Rock.
And we also find our partner has now aged significantly, protecting the professor. Basically, in the electrical storm, he went back in time and met the professor, and now has aged to present, so now he's much older. Well, that definitely sucks. Anyway, so basically, Dylan is now tasked to find the German temporal vortex engine. Just go with it. And now Craig is being sent to find the German sub that has it. Here, almost halfway through the game, we're introduced to something kind of new. Basically, instead of the jungle, we're in the treetops doing balancing acts and shooting at pterodactyls. Surprisingly, this part is kind of challenging compared to the other parts of the game, but you're not going to struggle too much more. Next, we're in the mountains, fighting more Dilophosaur and doing balancing acts. Look, I know I'm speeding this up, but there really isn't anything worth noting throughout all of this, really. Even in the PS3 version, there's nothing really different about this part of the game. Unless you're super hyped up for another round of Nazi raptors. Yep, we still have a few more of these. To be fair, these do get harder due to being up against stronger dinosaurs, but it doesn't really change the fact that we're doing a ripped-off game mode numerous times. Honestly, I'm curious who built all of them. Did Doc and Brock make a bunch of these, or were they just something that were there before they made their stronghold? After that, we get trapped by a landslide of boulders, which we are once again at a turret section. However, this one is actually different. For one, we are mostly shooting at pterodactyls and pterodons. But we have one additional objective, a Tyrannosaurus Rex. What? Did you seriously think we'd be playing a dinosaur game without a Tyrannosaurus Rex? Come on. As far as a turret section is concerned, this is a change of pace, but it does get annoying. Honestly, it feels like a filler for another boring turret section. But I can appreciate the change in objective slightly. Basically, you get a few shots in on the T-Rex and then turn your focus onto the flying predators, making sure the gun doesn't overheat, and then get your more hits on the Rex before he can charge at us. That's pretty much it. So after all is said and done, we quite literally do it again. No, I'm not making this up. After stopping the Rex, we get attacked with a different Rex, because this was so much fun the first time. Only noteworthy thing here is that Dylan sees the cave he needs to get to. So now we actually get a change of pace. Basically, upon entering the cave, we meet up with another prehistoric creature. Giant scorpions. No, if you don't know this, there is a lot of historical evidence to show that giant scorpions and insects existed. No, Fallout's not that original. And we get some character development here.
Damn it! Don't do that!
How's it going?
You never mentioned bugs, Rock. You know how I feel about bugs.
Yeah, I know. That's why I didn't mention it. I didn't want to freak you out.
Oh, I'm freaked out, man. I am really freaked out.
Look, just take it slow. They're mostly blind, but they have an excellent sense of smell and can sense vibrations through their pedipalp.
They're petty what-nows?
They're pinchy things, man. The claws.
Right, got it. Claws bad.
Okay, back to the game. So basically now we're up against these Aryan arachnids and that's it. There is literally no variation whatsoever. At least back in the jungle we were fighting different kind of raptors and they'd splice in a Dilophosaur or something here and there. Here, it's just scorpions and explosive mushrooms. Seriously, with the scorpions, they don't even do the old-fashioned color swap thing that old games used to do. Yeah, get used to old shoddy here. It's gonna be your best bet throughout all this. Okay, that's not entirely accurate. At one point, we do get teleported randomly, and we fight a bunch of tiny raptors for a few minutes, and then we go back to fighting scorpions for the rest of the level. Why was this here? I guess because they thought we'd get bored just shooting at scorpions for the next couple of stages. So after that pointless detour, we find our sub with this time-temporal vortex thing. And guess what's next? Yep, another turret section, just with a bunch of scorpions. I think it's safe to say we were running out of ideas here. So after that, we go back to just blowing arachnids away again, and then we teleport some more. That amounts to nothing. No, seriously, nothing makes any sense here. So after that, we have a very brief return to some raptors for us, and we meet up with a new dinosaur.
Ah! Ugly fat lizard.
Yep, we have a Spinosaurus, and guess who else we finally run into?
Run! The shelters! Run to the shelters! He can't get you there!
Yep, she's here. And actually we have a port difference here. Yeah, believe it or not, as far as I can recall, this is really one of the only other differences from the next gen to the last. And believe it or not, the PS2 version is actually longer than the PS3 version of this scene.
You know, if that thing doesn't eat us first.
Spike? Yeah. He's been a real pain in the ass ever since I got here. I've been pinned down ever since.
We need a diversion. While I distract Spike, you run as fast as you can west of here towards the cliffs. I'll radio ahead, let Rock and your dad know you're coming.
What about you?
I'll make it up as I go along. Ready?
No, wait! I've got to pack my things. My research notes.
1, 2,
My books, my soil sample.
3, go! You know, if that thing doesn't eat us first.
Spike? Yeah. He's been a real pain in the ass ever since I got here. I've been pinned down ever since.
While I distract Spike, you run as fast as you can west of here towards the cliffs. I'll radio ahead, let Rock and your dad know you're coming. Ready?
Why did they cut that out in the next gen version? I have no idea. So now we have our first fight with the largest carnivorous land dinosaur to live. So Spike, no seriously, that's its name. And this fight is not that hard, but some things make this fight kind of hard, if that makes any sense. For one, this thing seems to have like a buffer or something. Basically, as you get closer, it just knocks you all over the place. And like some sort of like invisible force field or something. While you do have an infinite ammo crate, it's hard to get to thanks to this buffer, whatever this thing is. Okay, aside from this thing's force field or what have you, this really isn't that hard of a fight. Just go against your natural instinct of aiming for the head and instead aim for the underbelly that has this huge scar. Why does it have that? I don't know. Maybe the doc tried to perform a vivisection or something. I don't know. The only other thing that's worth noting is the fact that it can grab you, and unless you get a good number of shots in, it will, well... So, after doing enough damage, we get rescued in Jurassic Park 3 fashion by a T-Rex, and let's ignore the fact that both these dinosaurs didn't even exist in the same time period. And we move on to a convenient place teleportation time warp thing or whatever. So after all that, and then with a brief encounter of raptors, we return to the group. And Dylan makes it clear he's kind of ticked off.
Thank you. You risked your life for me.
You can pay me extra when we get back home. And you owe me a new plane.
Of course. Tell you what, why don't I just write you a check now, and you can cash it in, oh, I don't know, let's say 65 million years from now.
Hey, I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for you. It never occurred to you to tell me.
Oh, like I knew for sure that this was going to happen.
But we find out we still need a power source in order to use the Vortex engine. So we go on one more adventure to find a time vortex drone. Just go with it. So we can take the atomic battery and head home.
Where's that atomic battery?
Aside from getting the battery and something called an ESD-P206, I'm pretty sure this isn't a real gun. It's some futuristic shotgun or something. I don't know what it is. And then we do some of the same thing we did the rest of the game, which is basically just shooting up scorpions and dinosaurs, and the whole thing we've been doing this entire game.
Ah! It lives!
When we get back, first round's on me.
So, we're finally going home, right?
I've got a check to cash. What? Come on, I'm just messing with you.
No!
Seriously, I'm just kidding. I don't even want your money anymore.
Spike!
Nope, we have one last encounter with Spike, and yeah, this fight is pretty easy, as all of the weaknesses are still valid, and we can get ammo more easily. The only thing that makes this harder is two things. For one, you can easily walk off or be knocked off the old trapeze or whatever. Second, you are now timed, as Spike will continue to hammer into the door, and if he succeeds, well... But otherwise, this is a pretty easy finale fight. Just shoot for the underbelly. Have his head intimately acquainted with a handheld anti-tank grenade launcher when he speaks out, and watch and repeat.
Rena! Get to the time portal! Hurry!
I'm not leaving without you!
So now we can finally get home, except Spike is still alive. But Brock wants to take care of this personally, so we leave and we go back to the present. But they are in the middle of nowhere.
Race ya.
But not to worry. The Doc and Brock also come back with a boat with Spike. And instead of having a proper cut to credits, we have the rest of the story given to us over the credits.
Father, I'm so glad you're safe.
Oh, Sabrina, you know I wouldn't rest until I could see you again.
Hell of a hood ornament you got there, buddy.
You like it? We thought it would be best to bring back some proof. Plus, the good doctor has some great recipes for roasted dinosaur.
With a real dinosaur and the time vortex engine, they'll have to believe us. But Father, how did you get the TVE working again? And to arrive almost at the same moment we did. It's just amazing.
It was simple, really. Once Rock took care of our friend here, it was merely a matter of...
And we have a nice little ending. That makes no sense.
So, what do we do about gas for this boat? Does it even still work? Guys...
And we have tons of problems with this. First off, technobabble aside, how did they get a whole darn ship through the time vortex thing? According to the doc, it took them a year to get everything right, so how could they be able to go back in time? So, what did Brock and the Doc do to get Spike? It's implied that Brock killed Spike just after Dylan and Gal left, so ignoring the fact that the stupid thing should have decomposed to some degree after being killed, how did it play possum all this time? Did they intentionally keep it alive? And if that is the case, how did they keep that thing sedated? Oh god, whatever. I'm putting way more energy into this than it's really worth. Jurassic the Hunted on the last gen or next gen platform is a lame dinosaur shooter. It feels exactly what it is, a cheap budget title. Shockingly enough, the price you'll probably be paying for is more than it's actually worth. Put it bluntly, hardly the worst game ever made, just one of the most cut and dry games I've ever played for the two platforms. You want to play a good dinosaur game? Refer to the list at the beginning of the video.
That is one big pile of shit.